Neanderthals never lived in Africa, but their genes got there somehow. Although it is still routinely stated that Africans do not have Neanderthal DNA, a study from 2020 concluded that Sub-Saharan Africans have 0.5% Neanderthal DNA, a significant amount. This is a mystery, and could upend the tidy story of a recent African origin of modern humans. The classic story goes like this. About 300,000 years ago in Africa, humans with modern-looking skulls appeared. Fossils from Jebel Irhoud in Morocco are a key piece of evidence, skulls with flat faces and big brain cases, much like ours. Over the next 200,000 years or so, these early humans spread across Africa and then, around 70,000 years ago, left the continent, eventually replacing other humans like Neanderthals. The presence of small amounts of Neanderthal DNA in some African populations is typically explained by back migration from Eurasia. However, an alternative explanation is that some early humans mixed with Neanderthals before migrating back to Africa. But another explanation is that Neanderthals migrated into Africa. Recent studies suggest that early Homo sapiens did not evolve in isolation, but were part of a web of interbreeding populations, including Neanderthals, Denisovans, and possibly unknown archaic groups. If Neanderthals were moving between Africa and Eurasia frequently, the traditional out-of-Africa narrative may be an oversimplification. This perspective aligns with a more dynamic, interconnected model of human evolution, rather than a strict African origin followed by a one-way migration. It suggests that early human populations were highly mobile, and that our evolutionary history was shaped by constant movement, gene flow, and interbreeding across a vast geographic range. Some paleoanthropological discoveries challenge a strict African origin. For example, fossils in northwest Africa and in the Near East suggest early Homo sapiens, or near-modern humans, were already present in regions bordering Africa and Eurasia much earlier than the major out-of-Africa migration 70,000 years ago. This could imply a wider non-African component to early human evolution. Fossils such as Jebel Irhoud and Mislia Cave suggest that early Homo sapiens were already present in areas close to or outside Africa much earlier than previously thought. This challenges the idea that modern humans first evolved entirely in isolation in sub-Saharan Africa. Based on the detailed charts, measurements and analyses in a study, new fossils from Jebel Irhoud, Morocco and the Pan-African origin of Homo sapiens, alongside genetic evidence from the study identifying and interpreting apparent Neanderthal ancestry in African individuals. It can be argued that the Jebel Irhoud fossils represent a Neanderthal Homo sapiens hybrid. This interpretation aligns with known interbreeding events between these species and suggests a Neanderthal intrusion into North Africa, which also connects to the surprising finding that modern Africans carry Neanderthal DNA. Let's dive into the evidence and reasoning to unpack this fascinating possibility. The presence of Neanderthal genetic material in sub-Saharan African populations, particularly in regions with less contact with Eurasian immigrants, raises questions. If Neanderthal DNA were purely a result of back migration, it should follow predictable patterns linked to those migrations. Indeed, some deep-rooted African genetic diversity may instead indicate a more complex early history. If early Homo sapiens or pre-sapiens hominins moved between Africa and Eurasia over hundreds of thousands of years, they would have interacted with archaic human groups, including Neanderthals. This would challenge the assumption that Neanderthal admixture occurred only after the 70,000-year out-of-Africa event. The out-of-Africa model may skew interpretation. Without it, Jebel Irhoud's archaic traits fit a Neanderthal lineage persisting in North Africa, contemporary with sapiens. The facial morphology of Jebel Irhoud, often cited as sapiens-like, isn't as definitive upon scrutiny. Indeed, even Chris Stringer once considered Jebel Irhoud to be a Neanderthal form. In another interview, geneticist Rebecca Cann, known for dating humanity's last common female ancestor, the so-called mitochondrial Eve, called the Jebel Irhoud study clickbait, and added, "What do I see? It's a nothing burger." Dr. Cann also expressed reservations about categorizing the Jebel Irhoud specimens as the earliest Homo sapiens. She suggested that these individuals might represent a transitional stage in hominin evolution rather than early modern humans. Therefore, Stringer's early caution about classifying Jebel Irhoud as Homo sapiens supports skepticism. Classifying Irhoud as Neanderthal better honors its primitive traits and challenges the Pan-African sapiens' origin, suggesting a broader, more tangled human story. The study even floats Neanderthal interbreeding in Africa, but why not a direct Neanderthal identity for Jebel Irhoud? As a matter of fact, the Jebel Irhoud fossil's elongated neurocranium, large endocast, robust mandible, and sizable teeth align more convincingly with Neanderthal morphology than with the globular, gracile, recent modern human profile. While some facial morphology and some dental features lean sapiens-like, these could reflect regional variation or convergence within a Neanderthal spectrum. First, let's consider what makes the Jebel Irhoud fossils so intriguing. Unearthed in Morocco, these fossils date back to about 315,000 years ago, making them some of the oldest known remains in northern Africa. The study describes a collection of hominin remains, including skulls, mandibles, and teeth from at least 5 individuals, 3 adults, 1 adolescent, and 1 child around 7 years old. These fossils were found in a single bone bed, suggesting they accumulated over a relatively short time, likely within the same population. The researchers used advanced techniques like thermoluminescence dating and morphometric analysis to compare these fossils with other hominin groups, including Neanderthals, early modern humans, and recent modern humans. What stands out is the mosaic of features they identified. Some traits align with early or recent anatomically modern humans, while others resemble more primitive or archaic forms, like those seen in Neanderthals or Middle Pleistocene humans. Now you might ask, what exactly are these mosaic features, and why do they matter? The study's morphometric analyses show that the Jebel Irhoud fossils have facial, mandibular, and dental characteristics that overlap with both Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. For instance, the facial morphology of the Irhoud hominins is described as relatively short and retracted under the braincase, with traits typical of early modern humans. Nevertheless, other cranial features show more primitive features, such as elongated braincases and projecting brow ridges, which are reminiscent of Neanderthals or older Middle Pleistocene humans. This mix isn't just random, it suggests a blending of genetic material from different archaic human lineages. Looking closer at the dental and mandibular measurements, we see specific data that support this hybrid hypothesis. For example, the Irhoud 11 mandible, a nearly complete adult jaw, has certain measurements which, when compared to groups like African and European archaic Middle Pleistocene humans, Neanderthals, early modern humans, and recent modern humans, don't fit neatly into any single category. Some values are higher than the average for Neanderthals and early modern humans, while others are closer to Neanderthal ranges, while some align more with archaic Middle Pleistocene humans. This inconsistency across categories hints at a combination of traits, possibly from interbreeding. The dental traits provide further clues. The Irhoud fossil's teeth, such as the lower premolars and molars, show features like the presence of multiple lingual cusps, which are found in 93.9% of Neanderthals, but only in 66.7% of recent modern humans, and a Y-groove pattern, found in 69.2% of Neanderthals, but only in 28.6% in recent modern humans. These traits are not exclusive to one group, but appear in both Neanderthals and modern humans, suggesting a shared ancestry or hybridization. This pattern of overlapping dental morphology supports the idea that the Jebel Irhoud individuals could be hybrids carrying a mix of Neanderthal and Homo sapiens traits. But how could Neanderthals, typically associated with Europe and Western Asia, end up in North Africa? This brings us to the concept of Neanderthal intrusion into North Africa, which ties into known interbreeding events. Neanderthals are traditionally thought to have lived primarily in Europe, the Near East and Central Eurasia, with their range extending as far east as Siberia, but not into Africa. However, the 2020 study on Neanderthal ancestry in Africans challenges this view revealing that modern African individuals carry Neanderthal DNA, averaging about 17 megabases per individual out of a total 3,200 megabases, 3.2 billion base pairs. This finding, unexpected because Africans were long considered free of Neanderthal admixture due to their geographic separation, suggests gene flow from Neanderthals, or that early modern humans lived outside of Africa. Rather than assuming back migration introduced Neanderthal DNA into Africa, one could argue that early Homo sapiens or their direct ancestors interbred with Neanderthals, or a Neanderthal-like population, inside of Africa, meaning the origins of basal Africans may have links to archaic Eurasian humans. The study suggests that an early dispersal of Homo sapiens out of Africa, possibly around 250,000 years ago, interbred with Neanderthals, leaving a genetic signature that later returned to Africa. Given that Jebel Irhoud is dated to 315,000 years ago, before these migrations, it's plausible that an even earlier migration brought Neanderthal genes into North Africa, contributing to the hybrid features seen in these fossils. Could this early interbreeding explain the Neanderthal-like traits in the Jebel Irhoud fossils? The timeline is crucial here. Neanderthals are known to have existed from about 400,000 to 40,000 years ago, primarily in Europe, with their range extending far into the Middle East. The Jebel Irhoud fossils predate the peak of Neanderthal Homo sapiens interbreeding, which is often dated to around 47,000 to 65,000 years ago in the Middle East, as noted in other recent studies on hominin interbreeding. In fact, the study also hints at older gene flow, potentially as early as 250,000 years ago, suggesting that Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens could have interacted much earlier, perhaps in regions like the Near East or North Africa, before spreading further. If Neanderthals ventured into North Africa, or if early modern humans carrying Neanderthal DNA migrated there, the Jebel Irhoud population could represent an early hybrid group, predating the more widely recognized interbreeding events outside of Africa. The physical location of Jebel Irhoud adds another layer to this argument. North Africa, particularly the Maghreb region, is geographically closer to Europe than the Near East, making it a plausible corridor for Neanderthal movement or gene flow. The site's association with Levallois stone tool technology, common among both Neanderthals and early modern humans, further suggests cultural or genetic exchange. If Neanderthals or hybrid populations carrying their traits moved into North Africa, they would have interbred with local Homo sapiens populations, creating the mosaic features seen in the Jebel Irhoud fossils. To strengthen this argument, let's revisit the genetic evidence from the study. The study found that Neanderthal segments in Africans overlap significantly with those in Europeans. This pattern supports the idea that Neanderthal DNA entered Africa via hybrid individuals or populations. If the Jebel Irhoud fossils are hybrids, their Neanderthalized traits could be a remnant of this early intrusion, preserved in the North African population and later detected in modern Africans. But what about the possibility that these fossils are simply early Homo sapiens with some archaic retention, not hybrids? The study acknowledges that the Jebel Irhoud hominins show primitive retentions, like the elongated brain case, which might be inherited from a common ancestor with Neanderthals, such as Homo heidelbergensis or Homo rhodesiensis. Nonetheless, the specific combination of modern human facial traits, a short, retracted face, and Neanderthal-like cranial features, an elongated, robust skull, is more consistent with interbreeding than archaic retention. Moreover, the study's comparison of Jebel Irhoud with Neanderthals shows clear distinctions but also overlaps. In fact, the external vault shape analysis places Jebel Irhoud outside the range of recent modern humans, but closer to Neanderthals in terms of brain case elongation, while other data shows facial shapes aligning with early modern humans, but with robust features akin to Neanderthals. This mosaic isn't just noise. It's a signature of hybridization, where genetic contributions from both lineages create a unique blend. The study's finding of Neanderthal DNA in Africans, linked to back migrations, reinforces this, showing that Neanderthal intrusion wasn't limited to Europe but extended into Africa, leaving a lasting mark. Genetic studies show that Neanderthal and Homo sapiens interbreeding left distinct DNA signatures, and the morphological mix in Jebel Irhoud aligns with this genetic evidence. The lower frequency of Neanderthal ancestry in Africans suggests it's diluted, but its presence indicates historical gene flow, supporting the hybrid hypothesis for these ancient fossils. You might wonder, though, how reliable is this conclusion given the age difference? 315,000 years for Jebel Irhoud versus the 47,000 to 65,000 years for most Neanderthal Homo sapiens interbreeding. The study's evidence of pre-out-of-Africa gene flow, possibly as early as 250,000 years ago, provides a bridge. If early modern humans dispersing from Africa interbred with Neanderthals in the Middle East or Mediterranean region, those hybrids could have carried Neanderthal DNA back into North Africa, influencing populations like those at Jebel Irhoud. The morphological data, showing a mix of traits, supports this scenario, as does the genetic detection of Neanderthal ancestry in modern Africans, particularly in northern populations closer to Europe. The implications of this interpretation are profound. If the Jebel Irhoud fossils are Neanderthal Homo sapiens hybrids, they represent one of the earliest known instances of interbreeding, predating the more documented interactions in the Near East by tens of thousands of years. This would push back the timeline of Neanderthal intrusion into Africa and suggest a more complex pattern of human evolution across the continent. This also aligns with the Pan-African origin of Homo sapiens, where evolutionary processes involved the entire African continent, not just sub-Saharan regions. Neanderthal genes in North Africa could have been part of this broader mixing, contributing to the diversity we see in modern humans. The cultural context at Jebel Irhoud supports this idea of a hybrid population. The presence of Levallois stone tools, associated with both Neanderthals and early modern humans, suggests shared behaviors or interactions. If Neanderthals or hybrid groups brought these tools and their genes into North Africa, it would explain the fossil features and the genetic traces found in modern Africans. So far, no fossil evidence of Neanderthals have been found in Africa. However, an international team of scientists has conducted a new analysis of a tooth and stone tools discovered in 1928 in Shukbar Cave, located only 200 miles from Africa. Researchers discovered a molar from a Neanderthal child aged about 9, making the cave the southernmost known Neanderthal site. Furthermore, stone tools classified as Nubian Levallois type have been linked to the Neanderthal tooth. These tools are remarkably similar to the Jebel Irhoud tools. We have no direct evidence of a Neanderthal presence in Africa to date, but Shukbar's southerly location, only about 200 miles from Africa, should remind us that they may have dispersed into Africa at some point. Indeed, Levallois tools similar to those made by Neanderthals have been discovered throughout North Africa, and some fossil skulls from Algeria and Morocco exhibit classic Neanderthal characteristics. The fossilized tooth of a 9-year-old child discovered in Shukbar Cave represents the most southerly evidence of Neanderthals ever discovered. New archaeological evidence from the cave also suggests that Neanderthals used a stone tool-making technology previously thought to be unique to modern humans. Chris Stringer, a human evolution expert, says, "There are two fascinating things about this discovery. For starters, we've long wondered if Neanderthals ever made their way to Africa. Shukbar is less than 200 miles from Africa, so this discovery strengthens the possibility that they did make it there." Examining the limits of the Neanderthal range is critical for determining these populations' environmental tolerances, as well as investigating their ecological adaptability and behavioral flexibility. The confirmation of Neanderthal occupation at Shukbar marks a significant southward expansion of this population's range, which is associated with diverse technological practices, as evidenced by the presence of the Nubian Levallois method. These findings lend support to long-held beliefs about Neanderthal occupation at sites even further south, such as Tor Faraj and Tor Sabiha in southern Jordan, very near the Red Sea. The appearance of Nubian Levallois technologies at Shukbar, associated with Neanderthals, is best explained by technological convergence caused by a focus on Levallois point production. So Neanderthal dispersal into Africa is very possible. Neanderthals may have travelled further into Africa. As noted by some researchers, the Red Sea would pose no real barrier to hominin migration, and to think that Neanderthals couldn't cross this barrier is a very strange idea. 300,000 years ago, a cosmic flare associated with the supernova Geminga, a neutron star located about 550 light-years from Earth, would have been visible for months. The Jebel Irhoud site straddles this moment in time. We have to ponder whether this invasion of Africa was peaceful, whether these two groups had noticeable differences, and if they saw each other as rivals. If so, the Neanderthals' advanced weaponry would be a factor. Now move your gaze north to Schoningen, Germany, where a mine's depths held a different story from little over 300,000 years ago, the same date as the Jebel Irhoud mine. These aren't just stabbing sticks, they're well-balanced, tapered throwing weapons with broad bases and fire-hardened tips, sanded and carved from Norway spruce with meticulous attention to detail. Consider this. 300,000 years ago, Neanderthals created elegantly designed throwing spears rather than crude stabbing spears. Not long ago, archaeologists thought this was a modern innovation. The Schoningen spears take this intelligence to a new level. Archaeologists were astounded by the intricacy of these weapons, which were balanced like modern javelins, with the centre of gravity a third of the way from the base, making them ideal for thrusting and throwing. The spear's balance indicates that these early humans knew weight distribution. At Schoningen, spears, carved with precision from carefully chosen Norway spruce, reveal an advanced arboreal knowledge that speaks to a deep intelligence. Indeed, the care in selecting the wood astounds the mind. In conclusion, the Jebel Irhoud fossils, with their mosaic of modern human and Neanderthal-like traits, strongly suggest they are hybrids resulting from interbreeding between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. The detailed measurements and morphometric analyses in the nature study, combined with the genetic evidence of Neanderthal ancestry in Africans, paint a picture of Neanderthal intrusion into North Africa, likely through early migrations or gene flow. This aligns with known interbreeding events, pushing our understanding of human evolution toward a more interconnected Afro-Eurasian narrative. Isn't it remarkable to think that the DNA of a species once thought foreign to Africa might have shaped humans there, leaving echoes we can still detect today? South African paleoanthropologist and archaeologist Lee Berger said he's not convinced that modern humans lived all over Africa so long ago. They've taken 2 data points and not drawn a line between them, but a giant map of Africa, he said in an interview. This hypothesis not only bridges fossil evidence with genetics, but also invites us to reconsider the boundaries of human history, showing how deeply intertwined our origins truly are. While it involves some speculation, so do many other theories of human evolution. And with that, we leave you to ponder the mysteries of our shared human history. But before you go, please like, subscribe and comment. Thank you and take care.